Hello, and welcome to the Cabinets HR podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cabinets. Our guest today is Dave Carvajal. Dave, are you ready to be great today?
Yeah, terrific.
Dave is an intrepid builder of billion-dollar businesses and a thought leader in executive recruitment. As CEO of Dave Partners, a boutique executive search firm serving the high-tech sector, Dave leads an elite special forces recruitment team that extracts and secures the executive leaders that drive high growth at venture capital and private equity-backed companies. In 1997, he co-founded HotJobs.com and power built the fledgling startup to 650 employees, $125 in revenue, and a $1.2 billion market cap after its IPO. Dave continued upon his success at theladders.com, swiftly building it to a 400 employee and $85 million revenue company. He founded Dave Partners in 2009 as both a capstone venture and a labor of love to help build the workplaces that create a better future for us all. Dave lives in New Jersey with his amazing wife, their twin sons, and Clover the Wonder Dog. Dave, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jason. What a pleasure to be here with you and your audience at Cabinets HR.
Dave, a question, I looked up your LinkedIn profile, did a little stalking. And last year, September 2019, you wrote an article and you talked some about how business performance and personal disciplines correlate with each other. Can you go in depth on that?
Yeah, that was a great article, Jason. It got some pretty good activity. Look, I am a firm believer that there is an A-plus player for every role in every company. And every CEO should know this. In fact, the three imperatives of any leader are to create a common purpose, shared values, and clear objectives. And I think that there is a methodical, disciplined process that any leader can follow to have big success in recruiting and building culture. The challenge is that most CEOs, most leaders, are doing something that I call, they're just winging it. And I don't think that winging it is going to get you the best results. The reality is that most businesses will fail. And I think they fail because they fail at people strategy. Recruiting and building culture are both the greatest opportunity for any entrepreneur, and it's also the leading cause for failure. And so I think it's, imperative to every leader. And I do believe that recruiting is a leadership competency, which means, that's good news, because what it means is that every leader can get better at it. And, that's kind of like where I come from. That was what the article was about, is really just being disciplined and methodical about running a recruitment process, about being intentional and purpose-driven when building out your organization.
Dave, can you talk some about how founders can build a great culture of high performers? Because I think you agree. A lot of startup founders, let me hire my friend. They'll do my marketing for me. Let me hire my beer buddy. They'll do HR for me, and we're just winging it for now. And we'll bring on better people later on. Not realizing how important it is at the beginning to have the best people possible, right? Sometimes it's better to just do it alone, right, versus bringing your best friends.
Yeah. Look, that's a great point, Jason. The reality is, look, my practice and my business, I get brought in typically by the chairman of the board, somebody at the board level who made a big investment into a high growth company. I tend to work a lot with tech startups. And so like all the companies that I work with tend to have a technology kind of component to it. Usually technology is the driver of the business. And so it's usually like a consumer internet company or a B2B software as a service company, a platform that other businesses use to expand their business. And so all that means is that it's a pressure cooker. I'm working in the most competitive environment in New York City, where we're competing not just in technology, like San Francisco and the West Coast. Technology is the big industry there. New York City is very different, right? Because we have all of the industries. We're competing against finance, against media, against fashion, against health tech now. And so all of these industries that are driven and powered by technology are competing in New York City. in New York City, you've got all of the big players, known as the FANG companies, right? So you've got Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, all have big major operations in New York City. And we're all competing for the best talent. And so as a startup that is backed by a top venture capital investor, it's a pressure cooker. These folks might put in 20, 30, 40, $50 million into a high growth company. And then they ask me to come in and help build out the boards and the executive teams of these companies. And the reality is what I know, and you know, Jason, is that the best people, they're not unemployed. They're not sitting on a couch waiting for the phone to ring. At a minimum, they are actively engaged, even mildly interested in what it is that they're doing. And so someone's got to go in, rip them out of their company, extract them, engage them in a conversation, just so we can put them through a filtering process. And this has to be done, dozens of times with different candidates, just so that we can get a finalist shortlist of top candidates. And this is the process that we run, so that they can make the best hire, they can make the best selection. And in order to execute that kind of a recruitment process, I've got a team, and we talk about ourselves like a Navy SEALs operative team. You've got to have a very disciplined process to go after, it's not even the top 10% of talent. It's typically the top 1% of executive leadership talent in terms of, best in class, best capabilities, best culture fit into the organization. And there's a way and a process of doing that a company who performs their recruitment operations in that manner is going to outperform any other company out there, right? And this is what I implore startup founders, entrepreneurs to do, is to think at an elite world-class level. Get beyond the friends and the family, right? Get beyond Uncle Joe running the marketing and just kind of like having people who are available and convenient and near you do the tasks, right? Actually have a much greater vision and a much greater mission for your business and recruit like a world-class organization.
Dave, so like you said, most high performers, suppose those high performer will say working at Google, right? I mean, he's going to be all in for Google, for probably working 60 hours a week, all in. How do you get their attention? Because they're probably working at Google, they have family, probably have a hobby. How do you get their attention?
Yeah. Well, look, it starts with a few truths that I set forth as a foundation. Number one, everybody's on the market. For the right set of circumstances and the right situation, everybody's on the market. I jump out of bed every morning knowing that I can get anybody. For the right set of circumstances, the right situation, everybody's on the market. Secondly, look, Google was a great place to go work 15, 20 years ago. It's a big company. You're just a cog in the wheel now, doing a small job, a very narrow job. You might be going deep, but look, I recruit people out of Google, out of Facebook, out of the top companies all day, every day. It's not that challenging. And this is what I would implore every entrepreneur and leader to understand. The greatest reason why anyone will succeed or fail at any company has everything to do with whether their personal DNA matches the cultural DNA of the founder or the executive leaders of the organization. And when you think about, all of the studies that have ever been done about human motivation and work, number 5 or number 6 is compensation. The first 4 or 5 have everything to do with things like culture, mission, the other people that I get to work with, right? The core values of the organization. These are the things that get people excited about coming to work at your company. And, it just takes a little bit of the right thinking and a little bit of hard work. And you could have access to a pool of candidates that is so far superior than the way of thinking that most entrepreneurs think about their company and their talent. And so, in my book that I wrote a book called Hire Smart from the Start. I talk a lot about understanding how to have the right conversation with candidates in order to engage them in order to evaluate them, in order to go deep and assess whether they're the right person for your company, right? It's not about a magical set of 3 or 5 questions, right? Rather, it's about learning to have a recruitment conversation with people in order to go deep and evaluate and assess them in the right way, but also to engage them and raise their level of enthusiasm.
I know most people don't believe this, but stats show that if you offer someone $100,000 a year and tell them, well, you get paid $100,000 a year, but you can't do anything. You just sit in your computer, do nothing. Like over 99% would say no. And that's almost counterintuitive, I think.
Yeah, look, I think that's right. I think people want to be intellectually stimulated. They want to be engaged, not only with their intellect, but with their heart, right? Like they want to be in it for the mission, for the cause. They want to be like, you know, in the trenches, and they want to help you not only by being successful in the role, but the best people want to help achieve a mission. The mistake that most entrepreneurs make is that they need an accountant, so they'll interview the first 5 or 6 accountants they can find on some job board, and they might hire the best one and still only get 60% of what they need. The most important thing when making any hiring process, hiring decision, hiring effort is to first start with a blueprint, right? And so in my book, I talk about this, the importance of creating clarity of thought, getting this onto a one-pager. Anything that was ever great, that was built by human beings, first started out as a blueprint on a one piece of paper. Think on paper, get your thoughts onto a single page so that you can understand and have a target that you can then hit, right? And so that the people that you bring into your process, your hiring process, are already meeting the qualifications from a technical capabilities perspective. They're already meeting that at 100%, so that then you can spend the majority of your time assessing for core values and culture fit. 60% of the reason why anyone will succeed or fail has to do with that culture fit. Only 20% of the reason why anyone succeeds or fails at any company has to do with their technical hard skills, their technical capabilities. And so what you want to make sure as a leader is to make sure that you get it right on those 2 things. And if you do that, you're going to be so far ahead of the way that most people recruit and build their team.
Dave, so what phase of startup do you work with? Do you work with them once they raise a seed round, or once they raise their A round or seed round, or later on in their fundraising process?
Yeah, the majority of my work begins at the Series B level. Once a company has about 20 million either in revenues or in funding, and then I get brought in by the chairman of the board or someone who wrote a big, 30, 40, $50 million check into this company, and they ask me to build out the boards and the executive teams with people that have real operating experience. They have the proven experience of being able to scale a company from about 20 million to 10x to 200, 300 million in revenues. And those are the people that I spend the majority of my time with, bringing into companies where we're able to create a wealth accumulation opportunity for them through the equity participation in the growth of the company.
Do you ever get any pushback from the CEOs like, hey, chairman of the board, I don't need these day partners people, I can do it myself, and try like...
Yeah, look, a lot of times I'm being brought in to the first timers. It's an early or young CEO. He or she may not have the experience, the gravitas of actually, building out a large enterprise. And so, and the truth is I charge exorbitant fees, right? I mean, this is like the major leagues. We're operating at the world-class level. And a lot of these, early CEOs get sticker shock, but really the core of our business is around that Series B level, where the CEO, leader of the organization, has a real sense of urgency, has a real commitment to bringing in world-class talent because it will transform their business. They'll actually be able to scale the enterprise and operate and compete at the world-class level.
Dave, are there any like venture capital firms in New York City you work directly with?
Yeah, sure. There's a whole list. I mean, you can go on my website and you'll see just, there's too many to name. But generally I get brought in, and a lot of times, these companies they'll have a lead investor, but they'll usually have 3 or 4 or 5 people from different venture capital firms investing in the deal. They'll do a syndicate, or they'll do a deal, and typically you have 3 or 4 or 5 board members who join the company, to be kind of be stewards of the investment and help guide the company so that it can actually get a return for the investors, and really kind of live up to the promise and the possibility of this startup, of the mission, of this vision that the founder might have had. And so these are the people that I get brought in to really kind of operate at the world-class level and help them build the company the right way, be thoughtful about the recruitment and the team building process, both the hard capabilities of recruiting and then also the soft capabilities of building that culture and the core values and the, what I call the operating system of the organization, right? I firmly believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner any day of the week.
So Dave, how do you help the founders transition from mindset of, I can hire anyone, let me go to my LinkedIn friends or, neighbors, to like being like the target of 1%? How do you change our mindset? Like, anyone can do this. It's your change of mindset. No, you need the best of the best to have your company do what it wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, Jason, it's a great question, right? And I deal with this all day, every day. And the truth is, look, not every client is right for me. One of the things that I look for, I'm very selective about the clients that we take on, because the reality is that every company out there can only be one of 2 things to me. And that is, it can either be a target or it can be a client. It can't be both. And so, I'm very selective about the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the leaders that I work with. And one of the criteria for me, I'll know within 38 seconds of meeting them, is whether they have a growth mindset, right? If they're willing to be coached. The reality is, look, I've been thinking about recruiting for the last 20 plus years. And, you're going to be hard pressed to find another headhunter that can help build your company that has actually built billion-dollar businesses as a co-founder, as hands-on with my own hands, and then also doing it as a service provider, right? And so I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed and hired, but it's in the thousands. And most CEOs don't have the experience that I have in understanding not just the mindset of both the candidate and the client psychology of winning when you're recruiting, but also knowing how to navigate the process so that you raise the enthusiasm level of the candidate, and so that we're able to select the top candidate out of a robust process that already included the cream of the crop, best-in-class candidates in any category or industry.
So Dave, how would you tell a founder to build a culture that attracts high performers? What should they be doing? Because I think a lot of founders don't realize the importance of having a great employer brand when it comes to recruiting people.
Yeah. Look, I walk. I generally get asked to come in and actually lead like an executive offsite with the top 3, 4, 5 executives at the company, including the CEO. And I might spend 2, 3, 4 hours, an entire morning with them, creating that clarity around core values, culture, and mission. I think is so important. And every executive team needs to do that at least once every 18 months. It's actually better if they do it on an annual basis. And what ends up happening is, success is never a straight line, right? And like Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent of the species that survive. Rather, it's the one that is most adaptable. And that's how, in my humble opinion, in my personal testimony, what I've witnessed is the executive teams that are, that have some level of humility, right? I think I'm very big on humility. I think all learning and growth require an openness to learning and growth. And it's those executive teams that are willing to adapt, to change, to read the data from the marketplace that the marketplace is giving them and is able to make those fine calibrations, in the end, those are the teams that end up having extraordinary success. And the process that I take them through is something called organizational self-determination, right? I think it's so important that a leader, especially the CEO leader of the organization, but then also with their executive team, that they have alignment around this notion that, I like to begin with the end in mind, right? Take the greatest level of success that you hope for your company and then reverse engineer that success. And so this process of organizational self-determination that I take them through, I had them map out and visualize and envision what 10 years from now, what maximum success for their company could look like. And, look, it's a very big ask, right? But I think it really gets their juices flowing. It fires them up with excitement and creativity, and they start visualizing what that could look like. And then I walk them through this process. Look, 10 years are going to happen no matter what, right? 5 years is going to happen, whether you like it or not. The world is going to continue to keep on moving forward, right? The question is, are you going to have the ability, are you going to have the opportunity to serve a much greater number of businesses or clients or people that want your products and services, right? And so what I implore CEOs and founders to do is to really create that vision of what the highest level of success could look like for them 10 years out, 3 years out, and then 1 year out. And all along the way, we're building accountability charts, which are the precursor to an organizational chart, right? A lot of conversations, a lot of, the discussions, the discourse that I get brought into at the board level is, look, if we're looking to start a new market or a product serving an entirely new market, for example, if we decide we want to do 50 million in revenues next year serving the European market, for example, right? I would ask the CEO and the executive team, well, who on this team has experience with go-to-market strategies in Europe? And if the answer is zero, nobody has that experience, well, then we have a talent gap. And somebody either has to build that capability or we've got to recruit somebody from the outside to come in who can help teach us and avoid the pitfalls and get us there faster, right? And so a lot of times the work that I'm doing is through this talent mapping is identifying what are the talent gaps and how are we going to fill those gaps in the most effective way possible. Sometimes it is possible that you can grow someone, but most often, if someone on the team doesn't already have the experience, the proven experience of building that capacity at scale, then we're most likely going to be served by bringing someone in from the outside who has that proven experience that can complement the culture and the core values and the fit of the team and help us achieve our mission.
Dave, has this ever happened? You do the exercise and you think to yourself, okay, this team doesn't get it. Their vision isn't big enough. They're not thinking big enough. They're too small. I need to go tell the chairman of the board that, something's wrong here.
Look, that's kind of like the worst case scenario, right? Just in my experience doing this for long enough, there are a number of things that I do before it gets to that point. Largely, look, I will not work with the CEO that has a fixed mindset. I will not work with a leader who can't get out of their own way, right? Oftentimes, I do a lot of work in helping match a CEO or leader with an executive coach. Look, in my role, a lot of what I do, and part of the reason I love this is because I have to wear many hats. Sometimes I wear the hat of executive coach. Sometimes it's executive therapist, right? Sometimes I've got to go deep. Sometimes it's salesperson. Sometimes it's investigator, researcher. And so a lot of times I look to avoid that pitfall by just not even beginning a relationship with them. I will only work with CEOs that have some level of humility, some level of growth mindset. They're open to learning and growing, because then I know that it's not one person that I'm looking to bring into the organization. Rather, I'm actually partnering with them to help them achieve their mission. which often requires significant growth and not just personal development and the transformative power that a startup and a growing and a successful business has, right? Like, I think that business is an incredibly transformative force in not only a person's life, a leader's life, but in the lives of their family, of their team, their community, right? And so I try to kind of, make wise investments of my time and my energy and my effort, and work with those leaders that are scalable, frankly. It takes a great deal of ambition and intelligence to be able to scale and be a scalable leader.
So Dave, salespeople say always be closing, but my term is I like to use is always be recruiting, because I think there's too many founders and business owners, whatever size, they won't even think about recruiting until the person leaves, and then they're behind the power curve. Can you talk about how important it is to always have some kind of talent bench of talent, and always be like networking, recruiting?
Yeah, I love it. Look, Jason, I think you and I are kindred souls, right? This is exactly how I think of the business. Is in the big fancy corporate speak, it's known as, the term is called succession planning, right? And I think earlier stage entrepreneurs and leaders of growing small and medium-sized businesses, they need to have this mindset as well, right? They need to always know within their market, they need to have bench strength. They need to be reaching out and having coffees and breakfast and lunch with, in the event that they lose one of their top executives, one of their key people, that they immediately have 3, 4, or 5 people in their Rolodex that they can call to reignite a conversation that they might have had a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Someone who is capable to be a leader in their organization, right? Have a short list of bench strength possible leaders that you can bring into your organization.
Dave, can you talk some more about your book?
Sure. Look, it really became quite a passion project. As you know, Jason, I've done a number of Ironman triathlons, and there is nothing easy about running an Ironman. I mean, it is hard. It is tough. It generally takes me about 6 months to prepare for an Ironman. This book took me 18 months, and it was arguably equivalent to doing about 3 Ironmans. It was hard work. I'm really glad I did it. I had a coach. I'm a big believer in coaching. And I'm so grateful for my coach, because what he pushed me to do was to really kind of squeeze out the creative juices and the nuances and the concentrated, distilled wisdom of the last 20, 25 years that I've been thinking about recruiting, and connect the dots. I would, in my book, talk about how to get from point A to B. And I would assume intuitively that people would understand what I was saying, but my coach forced me to really, be descriptive and to really talk about the nuances on how you actually get from point A to B. And so it was an extraordinary exercise in doing that. And it's part of the reason I've gotten so much kind of feedback, positive feedback about the book. And it's been helpful for entrepreneurs and owners of small and medium-sized businesses that are looking to grow their business. And they might be sick and tired, what I call in the book, they might have the skull-crushing pain, suffering, and brain damage that comes along with making a bad hire. And, look, I actually think that there is an epidemic crisis of bad hiring. And that's what I'm hoping to eliminate, right? All of bad hiring is a direct result of bad interviewing. And most people, most leaders, they've never been taught. They've never been classically trained on how to think about recruiting and hiring. And that's what I put into 212 pages of my book. Every book on leadership has at least one chapter on the importance of people and leadership and culture. My book has 12 chapters. I talk a lot about the importance of knowing how to have the right conversations, of knowing how to do the right evaluation of core values and culture fit, And all of it really starts with personal ownership of that leader in creating a blueprint, a one-page, page 97 of my book, that one-pager blueprint, so that they can think correctly. And with a little bit of hard work, they can get it right and save themselves the skull-crushing pain, suffering, and brain damage, but also the real costs that have been estimated at 3 to 5x of a person's salary on what it costs you when you make a bad hire.
Dave, also, I think a lot of people do wrong too is they hire like a clone of themselves, right? If you're an introvert, don't hire another introvert. Like I consider myself an introvert, and I'm not very creative, so I do my best to hire creatives that like introverts. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, 100%. Right. Look, it is so important to create that one-page blueprint, because on there, what is most important in building a team, right? I've had these conversations with some of the top venture capital investors actually in New York City, who a lot of times the investors want to send a resume to an entrepreneur or to a leader and say, hey, here's a great CFO. And what I've said is I said, look, Fred, you're often doing more damage than you are good when you say to an entrepreneur, here's a great CFO. Because that entrepreneur might make the mistake of hiring that person. And the reason they made a mistake is because any two reasonably intelligent people could look at a resume of a CFO and say, wow, this is a great CFO. That's not the task. That's not the challenge at hand. The task at hand is this a great CFO for us? Those two little words, for us, change everything, because then it's about creating clarity, about defining who are we, what are our core values, our culture, our mission, first and foremost. And looking to hire not someone that can just do the role, but that can help us achieve our mission, right? And the best way to achieve our mission is by creating a team that complements each other, that has the complete set of skills and tool set necessary as a team, right? Think about the A-Team, that TV show from years ago, right? They all had specialized skills that were different from each other, but together working as a team, they were able to do extraordinary things. And that's how you want to think about it as a leader when you're doing this thing that is so important, is building your culture and building your team.
Dave, can you talk some about what the proceeds of your book are going to?
Yeah. So look, I've got two big passions in life. One is, when I'm not with my family and doing Ironmans, I've developed a unique set of skills, Jason, that happens to be valuable to entrepreneurs that are building important businesses. And I love sharing this wisdom and sharing this knowledge and helping them. And the second thing is, having come from humble beginnings, 100% of the profits from my book are going to Room to Read. In fact, the founder of Room to Read wrote the foreword to my book, John Wood. He's a great guy, we're building schools around the world. There are about 7 billion people on the planet. About 750 million people, almost 1% of that, cannot read. 2/3 are women and girls. 250 million children around the world will never have access to a book or education unless somebody does something about it. Room to Read organization has now impacted the lives of over 16 million children. It's a beautiful organization.
Dave, is there anything else you want to say about your company?
Look, I would say my motto is this, and I firmly stand behind it. And I think it's a calling card for every entrepreneur out there, any leader that is looking to create significant enterprise value. And that is recruit better, achieve more. Make recruiting and culture your strategic competitive advantage, and make leadership your legacy.
Dave, can you share your social media for both yourself and your company so people can reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me at davecarvajal.com. Again, that's davecarvajal.com. Also, my company is davepartners.com, davepartners.com. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn and now on your podcast as well.
So, Dave, is there a link to buy your book on your website?
Yep, that's right. And you can find it at any major bookstore and of course on Amazon as well.
And to our listeners, we have the links to his social media and his website and his book on our show notes. You can find the show notes at www.cabinetshrblog.com, and be sure to share this episode. So Dave, we'll come to the end of our talk. Can you provide us any last minute wisdom or advice on anything you want to talk about?
Wow. Look, I think we're living through interesting times, right? And it's so easy to get wrapped up in the political theater or, the coronavirus or, things that are going on the news. And I would say, look, the greatest value that you're going to create is to stay focused on your mission, on your greater purpose in life. And, the wisdom that I want to share is that, look, all things are possible. Keep the faith, work hard, and you can change the world with what you're doing, right? There's a great quote out there by a woman named Anne Mead. And she said, never underestimate the power of a small group of people. In fact, it's the only thing that has ever changed the world.
That's so true. Dave, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.